A quick background and introduction. My name is Jeff Mitchell. I'm the Director of Athletics here at Ball State. I've been here for just shy of a year. Arrived March 20th of 2023, but was named Athletics Director on February 6th, 2023. So it's been just over a year since I was formally introduced to the community, but I didn't officially start with my feet on the ground until March 20th of last year. So it's been a sprint. These jobs, in particular for the first 12 months, is just nothing but sprinting as we attempt to organize the department and just to continue in the flow of what's going on with all our teams and adjusting to the changing landscape of intercollegiate athletics and higher education generally during this time. I am a native Mississippian, grew up there, went to school at a small school in Jackson, Mississippi, Millsaps College, where I played baseball for 4 years and was a student worker in the athletics department. I had the opportunity to stay at Millsaps and serve as our Director of Sports Information for 2 years while I had the opportunity to go to business school and coach baseball. Didn't have much of a life for those 2 years, but it was fun. And I couldn't shake the idea of going to law school after I finished MBA school, so went to Ole Miss, the University of Mississippi, worked in the athletics department while I was going to law school. That was 2003, 2005 time period. And then my wife and I got married. She was already living in the Bay Area of California, so I joined her out there, volunteered. That was the only ticket into the sports world as an adult. This was my first, after I got married, I felt like I was an adult. And so my first real job was as a volunteer at Santa Clara University in the Bay Area. And I did that for about 5 months before getting a full-time job in compliance. And I ended up working at Santa Clara for 12 years before, and I kind of climbed the quote-unquote corporate ladder at Santa Clara, elevated all the way to interim AD, and then my last couple of years there was serving as the number 2 administrator, senior associate athletic director, overseeing the external operations for the department. Then I went to Southern Miss for 4.5 years, was the deputy athletics director, also had a stint as the interim AD at Southern Miss, which was back in my home state of Mississippi. And then in October of 2022, the process for this job began, and that led me to Ball State in March of 2023. So that was a whirlwind nutshell story of my background, but I'm happy to be with you today, happy to answer questions that you have, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. If for whatever reason I don't know an answer or can't comment further, then I'll just be straight with you and tell you that. Yes, sir.
Daniel Keene, Ball State Daily News. You said in the first 12 months it's a lot of sprinting, it's a lot of identifying. What have you identified, for the next couple years in this position? In your first 12 months, what have you identified that you want to improve, change, work on as athletic director here?
Yeah, great question. Let me answer that initially by stating, for me, it's very important as a leader to assemble your team. So I spent the first 6 months of my time evaluating, listening, and seeing who our key players were, okay? Just to use a sports reference there. So I was able to establish a team. I was able to create some depth on that team. We were a little small. We're a little bigger now. We've got room to grow, but I like our team now. We've got a couple of openings that I'm still looking to fill, but in the process of doing that, we had some turnover recently. My former deputy athletics director, Haven Fields, left to go take another position at another institution, and so I'm working to fill that spot. So the team dynamics, organizational development is really important. So I spent some time on that. Also addressed some of the needs within the department from a facility standpoint to try to identify what are some priorities. And we've got a list of them, but we're having to try to tick off some of the ones that are most important. So the biggest project of that has been fundraising for what we're calling a championship performance center, which is going to be a brand new state-of-the-art training center, weight room, that's going to be on the west side of the Shondell Practice Center. I think I got my directions right. It's on the Follett Field side. So that's going to be, I guess, ground will break about 11 months from now. We got to go through state approvals, do some additional fundraising, but the architects are being identified right now for that project. We've got a number of other projects that we're looking at. There's some general assessments throughout all of our facilities that we're looking at. A master plan is being developed in that area too. And then just looking at our sports. We've got a great collection of coaches. We've got talented student athletes, and excited about continuing to put them in a situation to be successful.
Just a quick follow-up on
Sure.
that. And more of the culture side, what are you looking to kind of establish in your tenure here?
Yeah, so for me, I am guided by my core values. There are four of them: positivity, communication, helpfulness, and a growth mindset. I'm not making those Ball State's core values. We are guided by the values of beneficence, and I think athletics embraces that. But the way I lead, the way I want others in our department to lead, is we're going to be relentlessly optimistic in everything that we do. We're in a challenging landscape right now. The college athletics world is changing by the day. Higher education is rapidly evolving, and I think Ball State operates from a position of strength. And that was what was one of the things that was attractive to me, was the university is so well regarded, financially strong, offers a robust variety of majors, and enrollment's good, right? So those things are very positive. So I wanted to be a part of a community that was valuing education, that was valuing intercollegiate athletics. So that positivity marker for me is important. I try to live that every day. The communication aspect, the more we can communicate, the more information we share, the stronger we can be. Okay, so we try to do that internally and certainly externally as well. Helpfulness, there's no better compliment, in my opinion, that one can receive than to be called a great teammate. And so we try to be great teammates, not only within the department, but I have staked my claim to being a great teammate for the president's office. I serve as a member of his cabinet. So as a representative of the broader institutional community, I want to ensure that we're represented and being seen as great teammates for the overall mission of the institution. And then from a growth mindset standpoint, we've got to be asking questions about what's next. You know, how can we? What if we? Why don't we? Asking those questions all the time is really critical to our advancement. Yes?
Ethan Allen, News with Indiana. I was browsing your Twitter page a little earlier, and I see that you're retweeting and talking about all of our sports here at Ball State. So I wanted to ask you, what role do you think social media plays in just exposure for our athletic program?
I think it's important. Unfortunately, I think that social media from time to time gets a really bad rap, and that's just because you've got people that are just ruining a platform that is otherwise really great. I choose to use it for good, and I've got the opportunity to be a mouthpiece for all 19 of our programs. Again, I think we're comprehensively excellent, so it's fun to talk about the great things that we're doing. And I just feel that it's important for me as the Director of Athletics to trumpet the success that our student athletes are having, that our coaches are having, that collectively the department's having, and then as that translates into celebrating the university's success, I feel compelled to do that as well. So I use it to be positive. I think you'll see all of my posts have a positive tone to them. There's just no point in being negative. It doesn't do anybody any good. But I value social media. I think it's important. I think it's a way to enhance your brand. You know, I will tell our student athletes and tell you guys that if you have it, utilize it for good. You can very quickly jobs. I want to see the character of individuals as it comes through their social media, and you can tell, right? So that's just That's the educational moment of the day, is to be mindful of what you're putting in your social media platforms. Yes.
Danny Huber, IPR News. You said in a presentation that the graduation success rate for Ball State athletics is over 90%. What do you believe is the reason for the significant graduation rate when the graduation rate for Ball State as a whole last year was 73%?
Great question. So I can't take a lot of credit for this, for what's being reported in the past few years, because I haven't been here. But again, one of the things that was very attractive to me was the solid academic reputation and foundation that Ball State enjoys and that student athletes enjoy generally. There's a lot of emphasis that goes into academic success for our student athletes. Our coaches are connected on this. We have a team of individuals that work in our student academic success programs that are, their job is to help our student athletes be successful. The student athlete life is challenging. There is a lot of time demands that our student athletes have, from training to competition to travel, and to be able to have a resource on campus to help them guide their way through college is really important. And as a result, you're going to see higher rates of academic success. It is the cornerstone of what we want our athletics department to be about, is to be academically excellent. I'll give you a quick visual to that end. I'm a baseball guy, right? Having played in college, coached for a little bit. And I like to use this analogy of a baseball diamond. The student athlete represents the pitcher, is in the center of the diamond. Okay, so every decision that we make is in the best interest of the student athlete. All right. First base is about academic excellence. Okay, we can't touch home, which is the goal of baseball, unless we touch all the bases. So academic success, academic excellence is first base. There's a major compliance component to what we do. We want to be excellent from the standpoint of following the rules, right? To have institutional control. So that's second base. Third base is about physical responsibility and being excellent with the resources that are entrusted to us. So we've got to do the right thing in setting our budget and staying within our budget, not overspending. And if we do those three things well, then we can get around to touching home plate, which is about winning championships. Okay, so that cornerstone, that first base, is about academic success, and I'm very committed to that. Yes, sir.
D.D. Snyder, Ball State News. On your list of priorities, how important is growing Ball State's NIL opportunities?
Great question. It's important. So the question from Dee is about name, image, and likeness, NIL. Okay. A quick history lesson on this for you guys. Prior to July 1st of 2021, student athletes did not have the freedom within the rules constructed by the NCAA to benefit from their name, image, and likeness. If you were not a student athlete, you had the freedom to benefit off your name, image, and likeness. We have the freedom, all of us now in this room have the freedom to benefit off our name, image, and likeness. Okay, so if all of a sudden you see my face on billboards around Muncie promoting the Stoops dealership, okay, then I would be expected to benefit off that image, right, or that likeness, that name, if my name's up there, and in some form of something, compensation, driving a car, whatever the case may be, right? So by virtue of the status of a student athlete, being that student athlete prior to that date, July 1, 2021, they just couldn't benefit from it. So the rules have changed. Name, image, and likeness is now a thing, okay? And the problem is we have this tension between what is really true name, image, and likeness. So for example, Dee, you asked the question, if you're approached by a local business person to say, hey, I want you to promote my business, okay? And in exchange for you promoting on social media, being on a commercial, signing autographs, whatever the case may be, you will receive some form of compensation, whatever that is, whether it's a check, whether it's gear, whether it's you name it, right? Some type of compensation. If that transaction happens between the business and the student athlete, that's perfectly permissible. And that's the intent of it, right? What's a little bit different is what you're seeing in the news is these groups coming in and just giving money to student athletes, right? Under the name of name, image, and likeness. Is it true name, image, and likeness? Maybe. There's no real rules around it right now, and so it's a little murky. We do have a collective. A collective is a group of quote-unquote businesses that can put resources together to help engage in legal transactions with student athletes to compensate them for their name, image, and likeness as long as there's the quote-unquote quid pro quo, this for that, appropriate exchange. So in exchange for compensation, you're doing X to promote the entity. Does that make sense? Okay. So to that extent, yes, NIL is important. I engage with the leadership of our NIL collective called Feed the Bird Foundation. I have to be somewhat at arm's length with it, according to NCAA law, bylaws. I cannot direct that organization. I can't purposefully tell that group, hey, you need to take care of this student athlete, whatever the case may be. I cannot do that, but it is an important part of what we're doing to try to provide student athletes with that avenue if they're in a position to receive it. Does that help answer the question? Thank you. Yes.
Alexander Woods, Woods, Indiana. As an athletic director, how important is it to you to collaborate with coaches and staff on a personal level, just to make sure that we're maintaining a culture of competitiveness in both the Mid-American Conference and the NCAA?
Sure. Relationships are really important to me. I have always led with a compassionate heart. So I want to know our coaches. I want to know how they're doing. Their well-being is important to me. I reach out to our coaches, win or lose, after competition. I try to touch base with them and engage with them often. I quite frankly probably don't do it enough, and I try to do it very intentionally. But it's, we have a big organization, and it's hard to get around to all of our coaches all the time and see them. I try to go to practices when I can, just even for a little bit, just so that they see me there. And it's challenging at times. We've got some programs that practice early in the mornings, and with my obligations with my family, it's hard to do that, to get there. But trying to go to competitions, and that's important. We get more and more removed as we climb in the administration ranks from the student athlete. When I was coming up in the profession, primarily working in media relations and in compliance, I got to interface with the students a lot. It's less now, and quite frankly, I miss that. But I'm also charged with leading our coaches and leading our staff, and I take that very seriously, because I know that the way I interact with them is going to carry through to how our coaches and our staff interact with our student athletes. And again, we've got a great collection of coaches and a great collection of student athletes, and so I think the culture is very strong. But culture is never perfect, right? We're continuing to enhance it and improve it, and make it better. The student athletic experience is really important to me. You'll get different opinions, across the board. We've got a lot of sports with varying degrees of resources and varying degrees of success. But I care about them as people, care about them as leaders, and want to put them in a situation to be successful. Yes.
Callie Tuma, Ball State Sports Link. Being a college athlete, how do you think that has helped you, and how you connect with coaches and even athletes?
Yeah, a really good question. I think the background is incredibly beneficial. I believe that I can speak a language not only as a student athlete, but as a coach, and certainly as an administrator. So I think I can walk into a classroom and hang out with you guys and connect with you. Certainly, those of you that are student athletes, I think that I can walk into a room of coaches and understand their position on how things work. Our dedication to Ball State athletics and to the university, to our coaches, to our student athletes, it goes a long way, right? I hope it does anyway. And I was at most of those events, so I get it. I saw them. And, and our student athletes sometimes, and our fans, really more so than our student athletes, and our coaches, they don't understand everything that goes into what's happening behind the scenes. And that's okay, right? It's not about that. But an acknowledgement from our leadership team goes a long way because we care about them. And I've been there, right? I've been working those long days, those long hours as a staff member where my job was to make sure that those events went off without a hitch. But I learned those lessons of diligence and resilience as a student athlete. Yes, sir.
Evan Stovall, Ball State Sportslink. Do you feel like your time in law school has helped you in your current position as AD, and has anything translated from that to your current experience?
Yeah. I use my law degree every day. Certainly not in the traditional sense of practicing law, being in a courtroom or anything like that. But my job is littered with contracts. I deal with employment issues from time to time. I'm looking at complex contracts when it comes to multimedia rights. So a source of, or a large source of revenue for us is through our relationship with Learfield Sports Properties. And that contract that we have with Learfield is pretty extensive. I didn't negotiate the contract that we have now, but I have negotiated multimedia rights contracts at previous stops. The law degree helps immensely in that. The business background helps immensely in that, and the experience generally of just Great question. And then I worked really hard to find I just wanted a full-time job coming out of law school. That was the goal. I didn't care where. Well, I did. It had to be in the Bay Area, right? Because I was committed to living in the Bay Area for at least a couple of years. So my wife could achieve her dream of being in the Silicon Valley for 5 years. And then she tricked me, and it was 13 years before we moved. You guys can laugh. That was funny. So, the opportunity at Santa Clara, I kept getting promoted. It was a great place. I kept refining skills that I thought were helping me be a strong contributor to that institution. The opportunity at Southern Miss came out of nowhere. It was an opportunity that we thought was ripe and right for us, for our family, to return to our home state, to have our children, who were at the time were 9 and 4, interact with their grandparents a little bit more. So it was really more of a family move. My wife had transitioned to a remote worker in the high-tech space, so she had more flexibility and freedom to move. So it was just right. And then Obviously, he's at a different stage in his deal, but I try to get to as many of his competitions as I can. And I fell into a rut at Santa Clara prior to, and the children were younger, of wanting to be at every Santa Clara event. And I felt that an event couldn't happen without my presence. And I'm just being candid with you guys. I didn't think it could happen. And when I moved to Southern Miss, I realized that, hey, I don't have to be at everything. And I really want to be a good dad, and want to be a great husband, and want to be supportive of their endeavors. And also, there's this open invitation for them to join me here. And I feel like I can go to an athletics event and sit with them. Like, I don't have to go and visit with everybody that's at an event. And that's great quality time for us to be involved. And so we've fully embraced that here. They moved to Muncie in June. I came in March, and that was a hard few months to be separated from them. But I came in, or they came in June, and so we've been, at a lot of Ball State events for the past 9 months or so, 6 months. You can do the math better than I can. Let's see, new questions. Who hasn't? Yes, sir.
Luke Barnes, Houston, Indiana. How would you compare? How would you compare the pace of play per se of the different conferences that you participated in? You mentioned the laws in different states are different. What is something that is new to you here at Ball State that you haven't had to deal with at previous opportunities as an athletic director?
I think that Ball State is a very collaborative place. There's a lot of camaraderie amongst the president's cabinet. So there's expectations of involvement amongst the various areas of the university. So, and I've never been a permanent AD before, right? I've had the opportunity to sit in the chair as an interim, and there was some of those expectations of sitting on cabinets and working, but it was never as robust as it is here. And so I think that's been the most significant change, which I really enjoy, is that collaboration, because we get to put our athletics So I don't get involved in recruiting. That's not my job. All right. If our coaches want me to sit in with a family or a prospective student athlete and visit with them, I'm happy to do it. I will rearrange my schedule to do it. And I've sat down with a lot of prospective student athletes. It's great. I love it. But it's not critical for me to meet everybody. I do want to meet individuals that are going to come on board on our staff. I do like to at least have a touch point, even though I may not necessarily be hiring them. I think that's important for me, but from a student athlete standpoint, I can't. There's just no way. But I do trust our coaches that are bringing in men and women of character that are going to represent not only their team, but the institution and certainly the department in a first-class way. Yes, sir.
Nathan Hargrave, Ball State, Indiana. You mentioned having the opportunity to coach baseball earlier in your career. Has that experience helped influence you in dealing with coaches and staff and as athletic director?
Yes. Yeah, I think I can understand the language and sometimes the level of intensity that coaches bring when they're concerned about something. Our coaches' perspective is appropriately focused on their respective sports. Right? My job has to be a little bit more holistic about the department. And so sometimes it's helpful for our coaches and me to have conversations so that we can understand each other's perspectives and help identify where we can help each other in terms of driving success. So with my background and having helped coach a team, certainly again as a student athlete, but more so now a broad experience as an administrator, I think it helps me every day in the interactions with our diverse coaching staff, again across all of our 19 sports. So yeah, I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. Yes, sir.
Ryan Stojess with Ball State SportsLink. When you spoke to SportsLink earlier this month, you talked a lot about the importance of a brand. So my question is, how would you define Ball State's brand to someone unfamiliar with the university?
Yeah. I think Ball State's brand is centered around excellence. I think that it's well known throughout the country of being an institution that when you dig a little bit, you understand that it's built on a reputation of hard work. Right? I think that's the legacy of the Ball family. And I think that there's an element of fun that people know about Ball State because when I got the job, I can't believe the number of people that reached out to me that were doing the chirp deal, and I was only marginally familiar with it. So I'm like, chirp back, but I don't know what that means. I quickly learned, but I think the diligence, the hard work, the fun element. I think there's a little bit of intrigue when you see the name. If you're unfamiliar with it, with Ball, Ball U. Sometimes you see it, and Ball State. Like, what's that? I mean, my son. Here's a funny story. When I told my wife and I sat down with our kids, took them out to dinner. It was kind of weird. They knew something was going on. They're like, "What's going on? This is different." And we told them that, hey, I'm going for this final interview, and there's a chance that I get it, and we could be moving. And my daughter, again, who's in the 10th grade, like, are they good? Like, that's got two competitive kiddos. Are they good? And I said, yeah, actually, they're really good. And my son, before I said that, said they better be good with a name like Ball State, right? So he was immediately going to Ball as an object as opposed to a family name. But I think the legacy of being good, I illustrate that to suggest that there's a strength in the success of our teams and the success of the institution. Okay, in particular, your architecture, your SportsLink, your business school are all known nationally. And so I think that that just speaks to the type of institution that it is, certainly from a teacher's college standpoint. So I've known, as a matter of fact, I said this in my interviews, that I've known the Ball State brand for as long as I can remember. When I think of the MAC, the first institution that always came to mind for me was Ball State. That's just how the institution resonated with me, and I'm not alone in that. I can't tell you the volume of people, and I've been fortunate because I've lived in various areas of the country just to have some pretty significant contacts. And as the news got out that I had been named athletics director here, the volume of people that just said, "Hey, what a great job, what a great place," and for people that had either been here before or had or just were familiar with it. So I hope that answers your question. You two, you can go first.
Kaylee Kern, Ball State Sports Link. The athletic department tends to pull in a lot of students in our sports administration majors to work in their department. What is your thoughts on that, and do you think it will help students succeed in the near future?
Yes. So we have 25 to 30 graduate assistants, either in coaching or that work in the department. It is a huge asset to our operation. We need that personnel, and absolutely, unequivocally, it helps students not only have experience, but develop work product that they can present to prospective employers and say, "Hey, I have worked in an intercollegiate athletic setting. I've anything from game operations to compliance to marketing, you name it. The list can be pretty extensive. Because I had this experience as a graduate assistant or a student worker, as an undergrad, I feel as if I can compete for a potential job, right? One of the things that I want to encourage you guys, if you're interested in this field, is to just get involved somehow, either as a student or apply for GAs. And it doesn't have to be at Ball State, it can be elsewhere. But the more experience you can get, the more competitive you're going to be when you go for jobs. This is a very, very competitive field. Okay, it is not lost on me. From my position, I'm one of 133 FBS football bowl subdivision athletic directors in the country, okay, in the world, right? One of 130 and change, right? I have to pinch myself every now and then, like, hey, this is pretty cool. So similarly, our student athletes, on our teams are one of a handful that participate at this level, and that's special. And so to be able to get experience in our department, to put yourself out there as a competitive individual for a job, is going to resonate well. And particularly those of you in Sports Link and working with journalism here on campus, the reputation of this place is so good. If you're getting substantive experience that you can put on a resume and articulate well, you've got a great chance, right, because of the education that you're getting here. Yes, sir.
Brian Short, Ball State Sports Link. Charlie Cardinal is being seen more and more around campus. In the coming years, do you ever see that becoming a more official logo at Ball State?
Great question. I think that it's a fun logo. I think that it's certainly a long-standing tradition. I don't know that you're going to see it formally adopted anytime soon. I think it's just going to be kind of a part of the Ball State brand. This gets into a tricky conversation we'll have to have another class about, because you can, the tiniest details go into brand strength. So I'm wearing Dancing Charlie today, but I alternate. I like wearing what I call the ordinary Charlie too, but the traditional cardinal head is the primary mark, right? And we'll continue to do that. Dancing Charlie kind of came on in the COVID, or reemerged during the COVID time frame. was primarily adopted by football. It is kind of bled into some other sports. You're starting to see it on some uniforms, which I think is okay. But I think the primary mark continues to be the cardinal head, and I don't know that we're going to deviate from that. But I do think incorporating from time to time Dancing Charlie into some things, and again, it's on some of our gear, and that's okay. More of an internal mark, but externally, I mean, you're still going to see the cardinal head. Yes.
Stephen Pester, Ball State University. They say every job has its highs and lows. What would you say is the hardest decision you've ever had to make as an athletics director?
I won't go into to specifics on this, but when I was serving as the interim AD at Southern Miss, I had to make a decision, and I had to challenge a coach on a hire, and essentially put my foot down and said, you know, we're going to go in a different direction on this. I'm not going to allow you to hire a specific individual, and you know, there was a lot of scrutiny of that. I have rested well every night since I made that decision. I think it was one of those decisions that probably affirmed to me that I could do this job, because there are some tough decisions that you have to make. And you know, there are times when there's confrontation, but I try not to be a confrontational person. I mean, it's going to happen from time to time. I won't go into specifics about it, but the decision that I made, though, came up in my interview here at Ball State, and I told that story to President Mearns as an example of the very question that you just asked. And I did go into specifics with him because I wanted him to know everything, because I wanted him to be able to do his research. And when he offered me the job, he cited the fact that I had gone through that experience, made that decision, and that it helped him convince him that he wanted to hire me as the new Ball State Athletics Director. So yeah, not a high point by any stretch of the imagination with that decision, but those experiences are far outweighed by the number of highs that we do get to experience, and winning championships or winning big games or just seeing student athletes be successful and seeing the stories of success from, you know, walk on to a scholarship player or whatever the scenario is. But I have a great job and I enjoy it every day. Yeah, yes.
Maria Holdings, Hawkins Media 110. Okay, about this conversation with the president. After 30 years of having new hires come and talk, I have never had the president speak so positively, that's 5 presidents for me, about a That wow burned so much that he couldn't stop talking about you
Well,
in his
I,
press
I was authentically me, and it was an opportunity that I really saw myself being here. As I was going through that interview process, you know, these jobs are hard to get, and I saw myself at Ball State, and I think that in those interviews, whether it was with him specifically or with the broader committee, I projected as if I were already here, and so maybe that was the trick, but yeah, I've loved every minute of being here, and was excited to get to this place, and so I think that may have come out and really resonated with him during the interview. Yeah. Thank you for that question.
Some of you may not have gotten a question, and I would hate for anybody to miss an opportunity, or maybe you had a follow-up that you didn't get a chance to answer.
Anything else? Yes.
With the Ball State Media, you've talked a lot about how you're very committed to academic success. So what strategies do you use to promote academic success among these student athletes?
So we have a really strong athletics advising group that is situated in University College, doesn't directly report to athletics, but Laura Hillenberg is our director of that unit, and she reports through University College, but has a kind of a dotted line over to athletics. She has assembled a staff that is extremely dedicated to student success, and with regard to the athletics component, working diligently with our student athlete population. I make it a point to include her in our leadership team. We talk about it at every leadership meeting about our student success academically, and I promote it, you know, whether it's through social media, through my meetings with the president and our staff there. I certainly promote the success on a national level when we have it. It is a constant conversation point with our coaches. Our coaches do a nice job of talking to their student athletes about making sure that they succeed academically. If you do those things, I think the competitive elements of being a student athlete take care of themselves when you can take care of your academics and you're not burdened by that when you go to practice or when you go to compete. And so I think our coaches have the priorities right, and I listen to them all the time, and they talk about it. And when they do that, I think that is a part of the culture. And so culturally, if it's important, then I think, you know, everything else kind of takes care of itself. Our GPA for this past fall was a school or an institution record of 3.44, something like that, which is extraordinary. That's the student athlete population, and we've been at or around that mark for several semesters now. But this one was an all-time high. So I think the fact that we're committed to it, that it's a part of our standard, part of our expectation of being a successful student athlete, you want to be successful. So I think culturally, it's a really big part of what we do. Yes, sir.
Danny Huber, IPR News. What aspects of your life has helped you connect and make decisions in the athletics department?
That's a big question. I think growing up in an environment where my mother was an educator and my father was an attorney, allowed me to experience ethical decision making, and their willingness to allow me to explore and be curious about my own path and my own journey in being grounded, by faith, being grounded by cultural and ethical decision making. I think I've just been able to grow and mature from being born into that, and I'm grateful for it, but also had the freedom of, you got to make your own decisions, and you've got to go choose your own path of what you want to do, and being supported, I think has helped. So I appreciate that question. Guys, I've got time for one more, and I got to scoot. Yes.
Quickly, you just mentioned Luke Barnes, News Link Indiana. You just mentioned how you're grounded in your faith. Could you describe a little more how your faith impacted you growing up?
Yeah, I think being involved in a family and a community where faith was important, being in a situation where I was mentored by Christian men and women, I think just helped with a framework of making ethical based decisions. I'm by no means a perfect human being, but I think being in those environments and being open to understanding different perspectives has helped me in just how I make decisions, helped me how I interact with people. I think being exposed to higher education, not only as an undergrad and a graduate student and a law student, but also working in higher education throughout my career has exposed me to diversity of thought and the diversity of opinions. And I think that is a strength from which I operate in terms of just how I lead. I wouldn't trade my experiences for anything, but I do think it's rooted in, I believe in something, and it's motivational, it's inspiring, and there's a freedom of exploration and a freedom of curiosity that is available when you're well grounded. And so I think from that standpoint, that puts me in a position to be authentic and genuine and how I approach life and how I'm able to lead our family and lead the department and at the same time be a follower and be a great teammate.
If we could show our appreciation